Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Attorney General Jeff Sessions back on the Hill today to answer more questions on the Trump team's contacts with Russians after evidence emerged that two former campaign advisors told Sessions about their communications. The Attorney General adamantly denied accusations that he lied under oath.
I've always tried to answer the questions fairly and accurately. But to ask, did you ever do something, do you ever meet with Russians and deal with the campaign? You're saying Mr. Carter Page, who left that meeting, according to the press reports, and I guess his deposition or interview has been reported as saying, I'm going to Russia. I made no response to him, didn't acknowledge it. And you're accusing me of lying about that? I say that's not fair, Mr. Jeffries. I don't think it is right to accuse me of doing something wrong. I had no participation in any wrongdoing with regard to influencing this campaign improperly.
Mr. Sessions did acknowledge meeting with George Papadopoulos, a campaign foreign policy advisor who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his Russian contacts.
I do now recall that the March 2016 meeting at the Trump Hotel that Mr. Papadopoulos attended, but I have no clear recollection of the details of what he said at that meeting. I believe that I wanted to make clear to him that he was not authorized to represent the campaign with the Russian government or any other foreign government for that matter. But I did not recall this event, which occurred 18 months before my testimony of a few weeks ago.
Sessions went on to set the record straight on whether he himself colluded with the Russians.
I would just say this. I stand by this testimony at the Intelligence Committee. I have never met with or had any conversation with any Russians or any foreign officials concerning any type of interference with the campaign or election.
All right, so our founding fathers, Greg, set up our Constitution in a way that the legislative branch would have oversight responsibilities of the executive branch, which is why Attorney General Sessions makes himself available to the senators over and over again.
Well, thank you for that little lesson.
I wanted to ask you, but is it overkill?
Yes. Yes. We have to admit that this is really, really boring. It's boring because we know the score. We know that one side is trying to outsmart or corner the other. So every day it's a constant game of tic-tac-toe that ends in cat. Remember you used to write the little cat?
I hate when that happens.
But it's where I think the Democrats are in danger of testimony exhaust syndrome when Americans turn it on and go, I'll watch Home Shopping Network over this. Yep. And then you look at this and it's like an episode of Law and Order where the police are interrogating a jaywalker while somebody's stealing their car, because outside of this room is a whole corrupt criminal enterprise called the Clinton family. And they're sitting there going over a meeting while the Clintons basically created, I mean, they engineered that meeting through Fusion GPS, let's face it. I mean, I connect the dots, but I really don't have time.
And you connected our dots to our B block.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about
That's called a
that
long
in
tease,
the B
Dana.
block.
Yes.
Story of my life.
The other thing, Kimberly, I was thinking is the entire time that these legislative hearings go on, and I understand why they call for them, and Attorney General Sessions said to one of them, I was in your shoes. I understand why you want me to come up here and talk about these things. But in the meantime, the thing that really matters is the Mueller investigation.
No, absolutely. But so it seems like we're going like back in time on some trip we didn't pay for that we don't want to do, like reverse bicycle, and it's never fun for anybody. So you're watching it, and I like his voice, I like his cadence, the way he says Papadopoulos. But other than that, I'm thinking, what are we really doing here? And I was almost being put into like a trance listening to it. And you're thinking, there's other really big news and investigations that we should be focusing on and talking about. And right here, I don't think they made any leeway whatsoever in terms of Sessions. I mean, I don't see that they scored any points or really got anything out of him. I think he had a certain sense of kind of moral outrage, a little bit of indignity, a little bit of, okay, I know what you guys are trying to say, but what do you have against me? And he kind of held his ground. I don't know. I think if the president would be happy with how he performed.
How do you see it, Juan? Did you have a chance to watch today?
I saw a little bit of it. I agree with you. It's not exactly earth-shaking. But, I mean, the fact is that, especially as the Attorney General, as the chief law enforcement officer of the country, his credibility is very important. And he had come before the Senate earlier and indicated that he had not had discussions with Russians and of any kind. And then subsequently we learned that he did have contacts with Russians. And then subsequently we learned that there were aides within the campaign who said they spoke to him about their contacts with Russians. So here he comes back, and I think the important thing today was to restore his own credibility. Say, hey, you know what? Okay, some of this did happen, but I didn't lie to you. I wasn't lying. Okay, I know now that some of this has been found out in terms of court documents, testimony, or revealed presentations to the congressional investigative committees, but it's just not that critical in terms of saying that I lied to you. But, you know, so it's important for us as Americans to have sufficient faith in our public officials that they're not liars. That would be good. But the other thing that's going on here, and I think it's really important to understand, is the backstory that, yeah, the Russian investigation goes on and President Trump remains angry at Jeff Sessions. And that one of the, theories out there right now is that Sessions could end up being the next senator from Alabama again.
That was a strange, we saw a little bit of those rumors yesterday, but Senator Mitch McConnell is not one to really dabble in rumors, especially on the record and commentary. But he actually went there today, Jesse, suggesting out loud that maybe Senator Sessions is the answer to Alabama.
Wow, that would solve a lot of problems that the Republicans have. I think it would make Trump happy.
But
and
it's just-
Alabama
You know what it is?
happy,
It's like when they
and
moved to
Mitch
5 to
McConnell
9 o'clock.
Oh, it feels so much better. Back
So,
to
Back to 5 o'clock. We're the Jeff Sessions of Fox News.
Well, in particular, you.
So in 6 months, Jeff Sessions will be the Attorney General again.
problem
Did he get
solved.
All right, now that we have that solved, what
No,
do you think?
I think this is the swamp at its worst. You have stuffed shirt politicians preening for the cameras, reciting questions that were written to them by people fresh out of college, and no one lands a glove on the guy. But it's going to be Watergate if you watch the news tonight. This is all about getting scalps. Jeff Sessions is a Cold War hawk from Alabama, former federal prosecutor. To accuse him of being a traitor is preposterous. I think what's happening is the country is so bored by this, no one can even pay attention anymore. Papadopoulos was wet behind the ears. He was freelancing. No one even remembered what he wanted because he was so tangential. Who is this again with Papa who? No one cared.
Not really a name
he
you
was
forget.
trying to, well, I mean, it's a face you forget because no one's ever seen him before.
Mean.
That's why we're using this little sketchy picture of him that he looks like he's like in a shadow in Prague. So, yeah, that one right there. I mean, who is this guy? No one even knew until they saw the picture in the meeting with him and said, oh, yeah, he was in the meeting. That's why Sessions doesn't remember. And as far as the other guy goes, I don't think anybody really cares about him as well. Now,
Wait a minute. Nobody cares about anything.
You don't
know
care.
what?
You don't
ridiculous.
care.
But why does
And you don't
anybody
care.
bring up this Russia stuff?
That's what we're doing
it's,
in the
it's,
A block.
but it's
We're getting it out of the way so we can talk
Yeah,
about
Yeah,
it
because
more.
we don't want to talk about
no,
that.
so we
every
can talk
hearing
about
that
the
goes
Clinton
by
law.
is another reason to remind ourselves that there is no collusion.
Yeah.
Did you see any collusion exposed? No. They're trying to get him on perjury
Thank you
now
for answering
because
the
they
question.
can't get him for collusion.
I'm really
Okay?
glad that you
But
answered the
you're
question.
welcome.
But let me ask you, what do you think about Don Jr. and WikiLeaks? Now they're selling to him.
I'll tell you.
Oh,
I
go
think
ahead.
Eric Trump is going to be the guy that gets all the Christmas presents this Christmas because he
Is
didn't
that-
have a meeting at
guaranteed.
Trump Tower.
Oh,
He didn't talk to WikiLeaks. He's the good son. He's the golden boy. No, but in all seriousness,
Good
it
twin,
looks
bad
like
twin.
he's conversing with this guy. He blew him off. What did he
blew him
forward a
off.
link on Twitter that said, "Hey, check out WikiLeaks"? That's a crime. Come on, please.
I thought it was very funny, though, that WikiLeaks is saying to him, oh, why not have Australia name Julian Assange the ambassador to the U.S. so Julian Assange can come back? Oh, why not have...
He didn't respond to that. Bob.
Why not release your dad's tax returns to us so that when we attack Hillary, we have more credibility?
Also
thing
didn't
is that
respond
I've
to that.
never-
either.
This is
Also,
ridiculous.
In all of these
Stupid.
years, though,
Like
have we
he's
ever
gonna do
seen
that.
the Russians be this ham-handed,
Yeah.
right? In their attempts. It seems kind of strange to me.
Also, the press is so upset about these emails. Meanwhile, they see Bradley Manning and now Chelsea Manning as heroes.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, so he's talking, we're not fans of WikiLeaks. None of us are. And those emails are a little weird, but it's a one-sided affair. When I saw maybe 2 emails there that from Donald Jr. maybe, the other stuff was just all WikiLeaks. But my point being is that a lot of people think Snowden's a hero and Chelsea Manning's a hero. Why do they care about this?
One thing I thought that the Attorney General and the administration has not done well enough, and they could have had a better answer today, was Kimberly, a couple of the senators asked about future elections and what was the administration doing to help prevent foreign meddling in future elections, and there just doesn't seem to be any there yet. And it seems like it could be one thing that they show that they're doing to be proactive going forward.
So that's when you talk about, Dana, giving them something to go with from the story. So that could be information that comes out of this. They said, okay, look, wow, you guys behind the scenes are acknowledging that this is problematic.
Yeah.
It could be an issue. So we're being proactive, and we've actually come up with a platform and a 4 or 5 point plan, a committee to oversee this. And
Thank
this
you.
is the
I'm trying to
oversight
give
on
them
the
advice.
election. And do that, because then they're more in control of some of the messaging and the nuggets that come
You
out.
have somewhere to turn.
And instead, it was just like, let me draw this like really weird, flow chart of how no one was in charge, like during the Trump campaign, and no one knew who that guy was.
Well, or to say that the Obama administration, knowing that this was happening, failed to do things, which is that makes the Democrats mad, Juan.
I've said this. I won't understand why President Obama was so reluctant to come out and say something. Now, I've subsequently learned that when he went to the Hill and they spoke with Mitch McConnell and they said, we should come together so that people don't see it as partisan, McConnell said, no, I'm not doing that. And so I think President Obama felt boxed in. But from my perspective as a Democrat, I think he was negligent, because the country needed to understand the significance of what was taking place, and it was hard to do it in such a political atmosphere, and the job didn't get done. But just to, finish up on Don Jr. and WikiLeaks, it seems to me that you guys just want to minimize everything that indicates, something smells fishy here.
But there's no, it may smell fishy, but there ain't no fish there. It's like a restaurant that smells fishy, but there's no fish.
That's gross.
That's a great metaphor. Use that.
That's
Disgusting. All right, from one Russian investigation to another, the Department of Justice says it's considering a second special counsel to look into the Uranium One deal and Hillary Clinton. Jeff Sessions responds to that next.
Will a second special counsel be appointed to investigate the Clinton Foundation and a uranium deal with Russia while Hillary was Secretary of State? Attorney General Jeff Sessions is weighing it, but firmly denied today he was influenced by the president to consider it.
Mr. Conyers, I would say that it's the Department of Justice can never be used to retaliate politically against opponents, and that would be wrong. A president cannot improperly influence an investigation. I have not been improperly influenced and would not be improperly influenced.
Republican Congressman Jim Jordan followed up with this.
What's it going to take to actually get a special counsel?
It will take a factual basis that meets the standards of the appointment of a special counsel.
Is that analysis going on right now?
Well, it's in the manual of the Department of Justice about what's required. We've only had 2. The first one was the Waco, Janet Reno, Senator Danforth, who took over that investigation as special counsel, and Mr. Mueller. Each of those are pretty special factual situations.
Let me ask it this way.
And we will use the proper standards, and that's what only thing I can tell you.
So do you think the DOJ should be investigating the Clinton Foundation for corruption?
Absolutely. Because here's one quick key question. The Clinton Foundation got all this money, 140 million, whatever, from Russia. Imagine their joy and surprise over this. Because I don't remember the Russians doing a lot of charity giving in the United States. I mean, did they give stuff to Wounded Warriors or the United Way or the
Hurricane
Telethon?
relief? No.
I don't think so. It must have been a real shock to them when they got, it couldn't have been any coincidence involved. I think that's a really key question here that has to be, and also it's just interesting how you can love the Russians so much 5 years ago to sell them nuclear material and then think that they're awful people now.
Is that how politics works, though, in Washington, where people make a donation and then they maybe expect something in return? Is that criminal?
Well, that's what the Clinton Foundation said, that in their defense. Remember when the New York Times first puts out this story in early 2015, in the fall there, and the Clinton Foundation went berserk. They're like, there's nothing wrong with this. This is just what we're doing. We're not saying that we were going to, there's no quid pro quo here for the Clinton Foundation if she were to become president, that she's going to then return the favor by reducing sanctions or whatever. I don't think there's ever been anything like that. Now, I guess that there are enough people that believe that Uranium One and this decision that was decided by 9 different departments, of which she was one, that perhaps maybe there is something there. And what Jeff Sessions is saying is that He has asked the prosecution team at the Justice Department to look at the merits of the case. If the merits of the case warrant a special prosecutor, then he won't stand in the way of that. He's saying that the president didn't push him into it, but the calls upon him have been coming not just from the president, but from Capitol Hill. You saw Jim Jordan. His question is, what's it going to take to get a special counsel? And Sessions is being very careful. He talks about literally doing it by the book because his answer is, it's in the manual of the Department of Justice. So he's trying to go right down and be very, very steady and be the Attorney General that he promised the Congress he would be.
Perhaps there is a paper trail, Kimberly, and, a quid pro quo. There could be evidence of that if you have Huma saying, oh, we got some donations, let's take a look at this. Or you have some Russians say, oh, how much money do you need, kind of thing. And that's what investigation might find out.
Well, right. And I think, I like his by the book approach. And again, that's why I said yes, it wasn't like so scintillating today, but I thought it was persuasive because this to me is a man who comes off that he is going to abide by the law, that he's going to follow it and go by the book. He's discussing the specifics in terms of how an investigation should take place and also not ruling out special counsel in future investigations. I think that's what Americans want to hear. To me, he's not presenting like somebody who's a partisan person in terms like we've seen very politicized the office of the U.S. attorney. It's a problem. It really is for the country when you see people like this and you say, okay, this guy actually wants to do a good job and he wants to not be influenced one way or the other. He wants to call it like he sees it, and he's also saying what they've done in the past is not okay.
It would be quite amusing, Juan, if the Russia investigation wound up causing an investigation of the Hillary Clinton Foundation.
Look at the smile.
I was looking at that smile. You know you're up to no good.
It's so Pepsodent. It's like
you're having fun here.
Listen, you guys opened up a can of worms with this thing.
Oh yeah. Oh, imagine
so it is
that.
Political retaliation.
That's what Jesse
said.
Oh no. Hey, so how about this? Am I Nikita Khrushchev or Donald Trump? I'm so mad. I don't control the law enforcement around here. Why doesn't the Justice Department go after those evil Clintons? Oh, who said that? I think it was Donald Trump before the Asia trip. And he's, oh, you sound like Ali to you? Oh, I was trying, kid. I was trying. So there you get. Here now, he's pressuring Jeff Sessions, who he already said he doesn't like. He said, why did he recuse himself? You caused me so much trouble with this guy Mueller. Why doesn't he consider leaving? All of a sudden, Sessions is now saying to Stephen Boyd and the Assistant Attorney General, why don't you see if there's anything there for the Clintons? Well, it sounds to me like pure, unadulterated political retaliation. Imagine if Obama had gone after the Bushes on waterboarding. Imagine if Bush had gone after Gore on the Buddhist temple fundraising. This is not American. This is not normal. This is wrong.
So I remember after the election, Donald Trump said, no, we're not going to lock Hillary up. We're going to let her off. And I think he might have had a change of mind after this whole Russia investigation got to where it got.
Yeah, I mean, let's just compare the two segments we've done so far. The A block was a hearing about a meeting. This is selling nuclear material to Russians. I guess they couldn't work out a deal selling knives to ISIS.
But what if the uranium wasn't going to Russia?
Where'd it go?
The deal was they couldn't leave the United States.
Well, it did though.
No, it did not.
Yes, it did.
No, it's illegal.
It went to Canada and then it went to
Canada
Europe.
is not part of the United
You
States.
can't export the uranium.
You can't, but they did, and that's
my God.
actually a fact.
Well, all right, so let's say I don't agree with you, but let's just assume
the
that
Hill
you're right.
reported it.
Let's assume you're right.
We did
At
that
most,
story.
it was 2%. This is nothing, zero, and yet, because Republicans are so invested in trying to distract America,
2% too much.
Look, it did not open up the threat of additional nuclear weapons, if that's what you're suggesting. That is ridiculous.
Why did we give them uranium to begin with? Why can't we?
Ask the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Ask everybody who was involved if you were so scared. That's not the issue. And remember,
I'm not scared.
And let me just suggest to you, we want control. We want influence over Russia's nuclear capabilities.
Well, then if we wanted influence, why did we give them all the uranium? Up next, more Republicans distancing themselves from Roy Moore as more allegations pile up. We'll have the latest.
One by one, Republicans are calling on Alabama's GOP Senate nominee to step aside as sexual abuse and harassment allegations mount. Now, House Speaker Paul Ryan joining the chorus on Roy Moore after another accuser comes forward.
He should step aside. Number one, these allegations are credible. Number two, he should if he cares about the values and the people he claims to care about, then he should step aside.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell also said yesterday he believes the women and that more should go. But will more go? What are the options for Republicans? So, Dana, some options have been discussed. A little bit of a couple chess moves. We discussed a little bit.
Well, I think,
earlier.
first of all, they're all basing this on that he should step aside. Even President Trump said that through a spokesperson that if these things are true, then he believes that Roy Moore will do the right thing and step aside. But Roy Moore has said that he has there's no intention of stepping aside, but he is starting to get squeezed. He is no longer being supported with the funding from the NRSC. I think there's 43 Senate Republicans now who have said, okay, enough, you need to step aside. And a lot of the additional reporting is not good for him. I don't know if that matters in actual Alabama, right? This is a state election. It's not a federal election, even though we're all paying attention to it. This is for the state to decide. But I do feel like he's getting pretty squeezed.
Well, Jesse, so some discussing, we talked about it, saying, okay, pop Sessions back over to Alabama.
Yeah, I don't know if Sessions wants to do that.
No.
Maybe he'd have to be physically
Hopscotch.
placed back in the seat where he came from. Listen, our BS meters went off when we heard the thing. We were right about it from the very beginning. The guy looks like a holy roller hypocrite. This isn't just a he said, she said when it involves minors, and now it's risen to the level of alleged sexual assault. We're hearing reports about him signing high school girls' yearbooks. When he's in his 30s, he allegedly was banned from malls because he was trying to pick up teenagers. It just gets more and more gory and disgusting, and I feel terrible for the victims if it's true, which it looks like. These are very credible allegations, as the House Speaker said. Now, I think if you're someone on the far right or on the right, you have to pick your battles. Is Roy Moore the hill you're ready to die on? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of other places you want to fight. I think sometimes you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And this might be one of those times. So I think everybody just to kind of use your common sense here. Is this guy who's been convicted in the court of public opinion, do you want this guy representing Alabama in the Senate and representing your party? At this point, and it looks like the floodgates are still pouring open, I can't find many people in Alabama or in the country as a Republican that would want this guy.
All right, well, he's not showing, as Dana says, any indication that he's going to leave or pull the ripcord on this. So where do you go?
Yeah, but I do understand why the voters, even if, and likely so that he is guilty, I do think it was a hit piece, but I think it was a factual hit piece. You can't have both. It doesn't have to be either or. It's one of those cases where we become prisoners of two ideas. He's either innocent, and it's a hit piece, or, he's guilty, and it could be a hit piece and he could be guilty. But the problem with I don't blame the voters for thinking that this is an attack because it happened a month before the election. And that doesn't strike anybody. If it happened to a liberal, they would go, this isn't a coincidence that it happens. So I understand.
It wouldn't happen to a liberal.
Yeah,
and that's why people don't like it.
But the thing is, you cannot blame the Washington Post for doing its research. You can blame the Republican Party for not doing their research. For example, why did they endorse Luther Strange? Did they know about this stuff? If they knew about this stuff and they kept it to themselves, then they only have themselves to blame. They went for Luther Strange, even though Luther Strange had some problems in his background as well. So why did they make that choice? Maybe they heard what is now being called an open secret, which I hate that word, but they have words. But that's on the Republican Party for letting this get that far if this stuff was common knowledge.
Well, the president endorsed, Strange. He did not go for Roy Moore. I mean, you bring up a good point. What did anybody know or hear, or was there kind of any rumor, conjecture about this? It's interesting.
Well, I think that reveals another side to the story, Kimberly, which is that, Steve Bannon had backed Roy Moore. Steve Bannon's still with Roy Moore. And Mitch McConnell is the one who said to the Republican Party that Greg's talking about, we're not backing Roy Moore. We want Luther Strange. Why? Luther Strange, one, is a reliable vote for Republican causes, including President Trump, which is ultimately what persuaded Trump to back him. But the bigger issue for the Republican Party overall is, given their experience in recent cycles with candidates who say things like legitimate rape and all the rest, it becomes toxic for the party. It suddenly becomes associated with the Republican brand. And from McConnell's point of view as the Senate Majority Leader, that's not good for Republicans. And I think that's what we're seeing now. I don't know what they knew, Greg. I don't know what they didn't know. But I know there's a civil war within the party. McConnell's on one side, Bannon's on the other. And now, somehow, Roy Moore has been elevated as like, which side are you on? And I'm sorry to see that happen, because I don't think that, given the testimony.
Sorry to see that happen.
Right.
No, because you know what? You know what? I mean, you need good parties in this country. You don't want to see
But
parties
at what point
break
does
down.
the president put some pressure?
Well, I don't know.
There wasn't a split with Anthony Weiner. I think when that happened, did anybody stick by him?
No.
It just went.
Even his wife is gone now.
Yeah, that's.
But you know what happened today, by the way, in the House that's interesting, is Paul Ryan has said he's going to go after setting a standard for harassment, sexual harassment in the Congress. Well, I've never seen anything like that, because typically that's a boys' club.
And it's also opening up a lot of questions about Juanita Broderick and a lot of the women that had
They're not
accused
gonna
Bill
pass.
Clinton
Yeah.
of sexual improprieties. They weren't believed then, and a lot of people are saying now maybe there's more to that story.
All right. Ahead, climate protesters are now breaking into song to sound the warming alarm bell. Hold your ears for some very bad karaoke next.
I was already gone. I was already gone. But yesterday.
When the administration gave its pitch for coal and nuclear energy at the UN conference on climate change, that's fun, it was disrupted by evil demonstrators.
The chart.
American, but we see right through your greed. It's spilling all across the world for that coal money, and we proudly stand up until you keep it in the ground. The people of the world unite, and we are here to stay.
Well, that's as catchy as headlights. Not as enjoyable. And as surprising as the gas you get after eating a taco supreme. But trying to speak common sense to the UN is like trying to speak Chinese to a table lamp. And anything positive you say is going to get booed. The UN prefers dictators and socialism. If you want the UN to cheer you, promote failure and death. Their hatred for industries, be it nuclear or coal, is embedded in their hatred, ultimately, for capitalism. Even as we rid the world of its truly worst threat, which is ISIS, they still hate us for trying. But what can you expect from these climate deniers? That's what these protesters are, climate deniers. They refuse to believe the climate has changed. One, to sober analysis and fact. Here's what they deny: that coal would save millions of lives in poor countries by replacing the toxic, impure fuels they use. And that the Paris Accords was a terrible deal that would have also cost lives. You want to spend $100 trillion to capture a fraction of a degree Celsius? Research shows that less than half that cash could rid the world of poverty, hunger, disease, and pollution. Using that cash carelessly is homicidal, which could be why the UN is in love with it. By the way, Syria just joined the Paris Accords. Now, by the UN's logic, that country is far more compassionate than us. So what if you gas your own people? Right. At least that drives down the carbon footprint.
Wow. Terrible.
It is terrible. I love, Kimberly, how those protesters, because they're ignorant, they're accusing those people on the podium of murder when if they deny coal to third world nations. 2 to 3 million, according to the Copenhagen Consensus, 2.8 billion people use mostly wood and dung to cook and keep warm. That kills 2.8 million people each year from indoor air pollution. If you replace that with coal, you would save 3 million people's lives. These people are the murderers
Okay, so they're accessories.
to crime. I'm just doing what they do.
Right, so they're accessories to
Yeah.
genocide, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's why you have to arm yourself with the facts and understand the issues very clearly on this. They're, I mean, look, at least they're not Antifa. They're sort of singing in tune.
That's true.
I mean, I'm trying to
They're
be
not wearing
positive.
masks.
They're not wearing masks or
Yes.
like weird outfits or like stabbing, horses or whatever. But nevertheless, they're trying to unite and be expressive about an issue that they care about, but perhaps they're not as fully informed as they could be. This is the problem. So I don't know. They've disrupted this. I like the little bouncing dot.
Dana, Bjorn Lundberg, he runs the Copenhagen Consensus Center. They calculate that for 37.5 trillion, you could eradicate poverty, hunger, disease around the world, fix climate change, pollution, all that stuff by 2030. Yes. So if you don't do that and you follow the climate accords, 100 trillion over 1 to 2 trillion a year, you kill those people.
It actually makes financial sense. This is a case that President Trump could make pretty persuasively. If you wanted to give a speech about climate change and energy, somebody like him could do what you're saying. But when you were saying that they're the accessory to the murder, actually, why doesn't people with common sense actually do that? Because
we're nice.
We have been too nice for too long. And actually, technological innovation is one of the things that they were talking about there was how you can take, because we're going to deal with coal for a long time, how can you have technological innovation developed here in the United States, address the issue of coal, make it cleaner so that people can have the energy that they need so that we can develop even better, more renewable energies.
Juan, why do you hate poor people from third world nations?
Well, if you really cared about poor people from third world nations, Mr. Lecturer over here, you would understand that, in fact, in the Paris climate deal, there were concessions made to third world countries to allow them to continue using coal and natural gas. And that it was the United States as a world leader that said, we're going to set an example in terms of cutting back because we want you to cut back as you grow, as you get a larger middle class in places like China and Brazil. So that's why we were in the deal, which is now going forward again. Yesterday
With Syria.
Now, then that means we're the only country not in the deal.
Because we're cool.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
We're awesome.
Actually, we're warm because we have coal, right?
Good point.
Yeah, but I would say this to your point, that you have people over there like Al Gore. I know you don't like Al Gore. Yeah. And you have our former mayor, Michael Bloomberg.
Right.
Michael Bloomberg had a great quote about this because I agree with Dana, by the way, that the Trump people had a legitimate point to make about the efficient use of coal and natural gas and saying, hey, it's going to be used. Let's think about it. But then you have the reality that people perceive them as such enemies, so angry at the idea of trying to limit greenhouse gases that you have Michael Bloomberg say promoting coal at the climate summit is like promoting tobacco at a cancer summit. That gives you an idea of how we are perceived now. That's by our own
I can't help our perceptions, Jesse, and neither can you.
No, imagine, that's true. Imagine if you're the parent and you've just spent $200,000 on your daughter to go to college, probably Middlebury or somewhere like that. And you said, what'd you do this weekend, Candace? And she said, I protested a coal conference at the UN. You got to think to yourself, that was not money well spent. And these people probably went to very nice schools, want to put coal miners in West Virginia out of work. That's what they're doing. And of all, it's true, one.
So they're Hillary supporters.
That's true.
And their dorms are heated by coal.
Yeah, because if you don't have coal, you don't have jobs in West Virginia and places like that.
And we don't have any jobs coming from
losing.
We don't have any jobs.
The other thing that's pretty funny too is that maybe Solyndra. How many jobs were there?
Yeah, there are jobs.
I can still count them on my fingers.
Okay.
And think about of all the tyrants and dictators and human rights abusers at the United Nations, these people decided to protest America.
I know.
Think about that.
We America, with others, have destroyed ISIS. We were saving people's lives, and these people are protesting. It's disgusting.
What about Lee Greenwood's song?
But
I think they did a nice rendition.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
That's part of the whole protest.
All right.
Joe Biden, you remember him, hopes President Trump never happens again. His latest tirade, next on the 5. Tirade.
Stuck my
Former Vice President Joe Biden had been parsing his words on President Trump while the president was overseas in Asia. But last night, he let loose when Stephen Colbert asked him what kind of impact the Trump presidency will have on his successors.
I think it will, God willing, it will go down as the single exception in American history.
And then he exploded.
How many of you are now worried about the stability of the republic? How many of you are now worried about this new phony nationalism and it's us against them? How many are worried about this populism that is designed to essentially undermine the essence of the Bill of Rights? I mean, I just think there's an attack on the system. I think people are worried.
Kimberly, he's out promoting a book called Promise Me, Dad. It's about his son, Bo, who died from cancer, on his deathbed saying, Dad, I want you to run. What do you think? Do you think he's running?
Well, I mean, he seems like he's ready to run. You know, that his head's in the right place. He feels like that he has, you know, the most to offer. We followed up on this the other day where he's like, okay, do you think you're the best person for the job? Is your head completely in it? His answer to both those questions are yes, correct. And I think he probably has a little bit of, like, you know, regret that he didn't get ahead and, you know, and go and run, and that Donna didn't, you know, put me in coach. He's ready to play. That's how I see it. And, you know, obviously this is a good platform. He's well liked in the Democratic Party. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not rule him out. He'll be part of the fray, like climbing over each other to the top between like Warren and Kamala Harris, right?
So, Jesse, in fact, when he was on NBC looked like it was having a coronation party. It was just like unbelievable. They gave him so much time. It looks like a lot of people are just, on the liberal side, are getting behind Joe Biden.
You're surprised NBC gave a very soft interview to Biden?
I don't know if it was a soft interview.
Well, I mean, what did Lauer play footsie with him during the halftime show? Sunday Night Football? Yeah, the two guys were sitting there eating wings. It was very, very warming. Now, I think the Democrats should run Dukakis, Al Gore, John Kerry, Biden, the oldest, whitest guys in the field.
Jimmy Carter.
To see what happens. Is he allowed to run again?
You could be VP.
He could be VP.
He'll make Biden look young.
That's right. You know, the problem is the Democrats right now, it's all about what they're against and not what they're for. And if the economy starts and continues to soar under President Trump and they run against a very, very high-performing economy, that is going to be a very tough sell for them to do.
Dana, what do you think?
Well, I think that if Joe Biden were to decide to run, it might scare off some of those younger Democrats because they'll think, oh, I can't raise the money. But they're going to probably have 17 candidates in their primary, just like the Republicans had in 2016.
Greg Gutfeld for president?
I could never pass the research on that. No, but here's what I don't understand. He's all over the place. When he was talking to Matt Lauer, he said the country was doing well under Trump. He said that, and then they asked him for examples, and he didn't give them any. But he said things were going fine. So I think, you know, there might be something going on. If he forgets, wait, everybody says that about Trump, and you can say that about Biden. The other thing, too, is
Biden and Pelosi.
I mean, it is getting to be an older party. They're going to need to add another A to AARP.
Oh, yeah. And the Republican president, I think he's 71. One more thing.
High energy.
High energy.
High energy. That's right.